The war room buzzed with the quiet hum of 1,000 holographic displays showing star maps that stretched across half the galaxy. Admiral Thane's 6 eyes studied the tactical projections while his massive clawed hands gestured at the floating images. The hegemony had ruled the stars for 3 centuries, and today would mark another glorious expansion into uncharted territory. "Sir, we have completed the analysis of the outer rim sectors," reported Commander Vale, her blue-scaled face reflecting the soft glow of the data streams. 47 systems conquered, 0 resistance encountered. The path to sector designation Sol 3 appears equally promising. Thane's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. The hegemony war machine had rolled through every civilization they encountered, with the same predictable results. Species would either surrender immediately upon seeing their massive fleets or put up token resistance that lasted mere hours. None had ever posed a real threat to their superior technology and overwhelming numbers. "What intelligence do we have on this Sol system?" Thane asked, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had never tasted defeat. Junior Officer Kira stepped forward nervously, her datapad trembling slightly in her webbed hands. "Admiral, our long-range scouts detected electromagnetic transmissions from the 3rd planet. The signals suggest an industrial civilization, but there's something unusual in their communications." "Unusual how?" Thane's primary eyes focused on the young officer while his secondary pair continued monitoring the tactical displays. "They speak of something called humans, sir. The transmissions reference these creatures as if they were some kind of military force. However, cross-referencing with our historical databases shows no record of any species by that designation." The war room fell silent for a moment before Thane's deep laughter echoed off the metallic walls. His senior staff joined in, their various alien chuckles creating a symphony of amusement that would have chilled human blood. "Humans," Thane repeated, wiping moisture from his compound eyes. "Officer Kira, have you been reading the old mythology texts again?" "Humans are merely a myth, child. Ancient stories told by dying civilizations to comfort themselves in their final moments." General Rex, whose species had been among the first to fall to hegemony expansion, nodded gravely. "The Admiral speaks truth. In our archives there are legends of bipedal warriors from the void who fought with the fury of dying stars. But these are fairy tales, nothing more. Stories created by desperate peoples who needed to believe someone might come to save them." Kira looked uncertain but pressed on. "Sir, the transmission patterns suggest significant technological development. Their radio signals show complex mathematical concepts and scientific discussions that indicate advanced knowledge. All primitive. Species eventually develop basic technology," Thane dismissed with a wave of his claw. "They create tools, they explore their immediate space, they broadcast their presence to the galaxy like children calling out in the dark. What they never develop is the wisdom to remain silent when predators are listening." The holographic display shifted to show the Sol system in detail, a small yellow star with several planets orbiting it. The third one showing the blue-green coloration that typically indicated a water-rich biosphere. It looked no different from dozens of other worlds, they had claimed. "How many vessels are we detecting in the system?" Thane inquired, already knowing the answer would be insignificant. "Approximately 300 small craft, sir. Nothing larger than a heavy cruiser by our classifications. Their largest vessels appear to be primitive, fusion-powered ships that would be outclassed by our smallest patrol craft." More laughter rippled through the assembled officers. 300 ships against their armada of 10,000. It would hardly qualify as a battle, more like an extermination exercise for their junior crews to gain experience. "What is their apparent military doctrine?" asked Colonel Dex, the hegemony's chief tactical analyst. Kira consulted her data again. "This is where the readings become confusing, sir. Their military communications suggest they have extensive knowledge of warfare, but the scale seems impossible. They reference conflicts involving millions of combatants and weapons of mass destruction. That could sterilize entire continents." "Typical primitive exaggeration," Rex commented. Every species tells tales of their great wars and mighty weapons. Reality is always far more modest than their boasts. Thane activated the fleet communication system, his image appearing on every ship in the vast armada that stretched through space like a metallic constellation. Soldiers of the hegemony, today we add another system to our glorious empire. The inhabitants of Salfrey call themselves humans, if the myths are to be believed. They will learn, as all others have, that resistance to the hegemony is futile. Cheers echoed from thousands of ships as crews prepared for what they expected to be another routine conquest. Weapons were charged, landing craft prepared, and occupation forces made ready for yet another world to add to their collection. Meanwhile, in a small observation post on the edge of the Sol system, Captain Roy stared at his sensor readings with growing alarm. The massive alien fleet approaching their system was unlike anything in Earth's databases. Thousands of vessels, each one larger than humanity's biggest warships, moving in perfect formation toward their home. "Get me Earth Defense Command immediately," he ordered his communications officer. "Priority 1 emergency signal." "Sir, at this distance, it will take 40 minutes for our message to reach Earth," the young ensign replied, his voice tight with fear. Roy watched the alien armada growing larger on his screens, calculating distances and approach vectors. 40 minutes to warn Earth. 40 minutes for humanity to prepare for something that looked like the end of everything they had ever known. "Send the message anyway," he said quietly. "Tell them the myths are real and they're coming for us." Far behind the advancing hegemony fleet, Admiral Thane continued his victory speech, unaware that his casual dismissal of human capabilities was about to become the most catastrophic intelligence failure in galactic history. The legends he mocked, as children's stories, were indeed real, but not in the way anyone expected. The humans were coming, and the galaxy would never be the same. 3 massive alien battleships emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system, their dark hulls blocking out entire star fields as they positioned themselves in attack formation. Admiral Thane observed the small blue planet through his command viewport, noting how peaceful it appeared from this distance. No orbital defense platforms, no massive fleet formations, just a few scattered vessels that his sensors could barely detect. "Impressive world," commented General Rex as he joined Thane at the observation deck. "The atmospheric composition suggests a thriving biosphere. This will make an excellent addition to our agricultural systems." Thane nodded approvingly while his tactical officers prepared the standard intimidation broadcast. Every species responded the same way to this moment. First came denial, then desperate attempts at negotiation, followed by either immediate surrender or futile resistance that lasted no more than a few hours. "Admiral, we're receiving multiple communication attempts from the third planet," reported Communications Officer Vale. "They're broadcasting on several frequencies simultaneously." "Let me hear their pleas for mercy," Thane said with amusement. Settling into his command throne, the bridge speakers crackled to life with a clear, steady voice speaking in what their translation systems identified as the local language. "Unknown vessels, this is Admiral Brooks of Earth Defense Command. You have entered sovereign human space without authorization. State your intentions immediately." Thane's mandibles clicked in surprise. No fear in that voice, no trembling desperation. Just calm authority, as if this Admiral Brooks believed he had any right to make demands. "Fascinating," Rex observed. "Their leader sounds almost confident." "Misplaced bravado," Thane replied, activating his own communication system. "This is Admiral Thane of the Galactic Hegemony. Your world is now claimed as property of our empire. Surrender immediately, and your species will be granted the privilege of serving as laborers in our expansion. Resistance will result in complete extermination." The response came back almost instantly, without any of the panicked consultation Thane expected. "Admiral Thane, this is Admiral Brooks. Your claim is rejected. You have 30 minutes to begin withdrawal from this system. This is your only warning." Laughter erupted across the hegemony bridge. Even the normally serious Rex couldn't suppress his amusement at such an absurd demand. A primitive species with a few hundred ships giving ultimatums to an armada of 10,000. 30 minutes, Thane repeated between chuckles. How generous of them. Vale, show them what happens to species that threaten the hegemony. The first wave of attack ships launched from the main fleet. 300 sleek fighters designed to demonstrate overwhelming superiority without actually damaging the planet below. Standard doctrine called for destroying any orbital defenses, while keeping the world intact for colonization. Enemy vessels approaching, Vale reported. Wait, sir, I'm detecting movement from the human ships. On the tactical display, the few dozen Earth vessels that had been drifting quietly near the planet suddenly accelerated with surprising speed. Their formation spread out in patterns the hegemony computers couldn't immediately analyze. Interesting. Tactical deployment, Rex noted. They're not grouping for a defensive stand. Almost looks like they're preparing for individual combat. Commander Phil led the first squadron of human fighters as they raced toward the approaching alien vessels. His communication channel buzzed with reports from his pilots, their voices calm and professional despite facing an enemy they'd never encountered before. Dragon Squadron, this is Dragon Leader. Enemy ships are larger than expected but appear to be standard fighter-bomber configuration. Maintain formation Delta 7 and prepare for engagement on my mark. The alien and human forces met in the space between Earth and Mars, and immediately the hegemony officers realized something was wrong. The human ships moved with precision that seemed almost impossible, their formation flowing like liquid while maintaining perfect coordination. Sir, our lead squadron is reporting unusual resistance, Vale announced, her voice losing its earlier confidence. The human vessels are using weapons we haven't encountered before. On the tactical display, Thane watched in growing confusion as his superior fighters found themselves outmaneuvered by ships that should have been generations behind hegemony technology. Worse, the humans fought with a ferocity that bordered on insanity, pursuing damaged hegemony vessels even when their own ships were critically damaged. Dragon 7 to Dragon Leader, my engines are gone but weapons are still online. Beginning ramming approach on enemy cruiser. Negative, Dragon 7, break off and return to base. Sorry, Dragon Leader, but that big ship just killed my wingman. Tell my family I kept my promise. Thane watched in horror as the damaged human fighter accelerated directly into one of his heavy cruisers, the explosion tearing a massive hole in the alien ship's hull. It wasn't desperation or accident. The human pilot had deliberately sacrificed himself to damage a ship worth 1,000 times more than his small fighter. What manner of creatures are these? Rex whispered, his scales turning pale as more human. Ships began similar suicide runs against damaged hegemony vessels. The engagement lasted only 20 minutes, but when it ended, the hegemony had lost 60 ships while the humans had lost 30. By all mathematical calculations, the aliens should have achieved complete victory with minimal losses. Admiral, Vale's voice shook slightly, we're receiving another transmission from the planet. Admiral Brooks' voice filled the bridge again. Still calm and controlled. Admiral Thane, you now have 10 minutes remaining to begin your withdrawal. Your pilots fought bravely, but they were poorly prepared for combat against humans. Leave now, and no more of your people need to die. Thane stared at the tactical display showing his damaged ships limping back to the main fleet. In 3 centuries of conquest, the hegemony had never encountered anything like this. Species that fought back usually did so with courage or determination. But these humans fought with something else entirely. They fought like they had been born for war. Sir, what are your orders? Rex asked quietly, Thane's 6 eyes focused on the small blue planet that had just bloodied the nose of the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Something was very wrong with his intelligence about this species. Pull back the fleet, he ordered reluctantly. I need to understand what we're facing before we commit to full engagement. As the hegemony forces withdrew to a safer distance, Admiral Brooks sat in his command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, studying reports from the engagement. The aliens had better ships and superior numbers, but they fought like they'd never encountered serious resistance before. Get me all our military historians, he ordered his staff. I want every piece of human military doctrine uploaded to our tactical computers. If these aliens think they can conquer Earth, they're about to get a very expensive education in how humans make war. Deep in the bowels of his flagship, Admiral Thane paced between rows of captured human data terminals while his intelligence team worked frantically to decode the alien technology. The engagement with Earth's forces had shaken him more than he cared to admit, and answers remained frustratingly elusive. Lieutenant Bell hunched over a translation console, her tentacles dancing across holographic interfaces as streams of human data flowed past her compound eyes. What she discovered in Earth's information networks made her stomach acids churn with unease. "Admiral, you need to see this," she called out, her voice tight with concern. Thane approached the workstation where Bell had assembled a collection of human historical files. Images of warfare flickered across the screens, showing conflicts that spanned thousands of years and involved millions of combatants. "These are their historical records, sir. This species has been engaged in continuous warfare for their entire recorded civilization. Look at these casualty figures from something they call World War II." The numbers made Thane's mandibles click involuntarily. 50 million dead in a single conflict, involving every major population center on their planet. The hegemony had never encountered a species that had waged war on such a scale against itself. "This must be exaggerated," Rex said, studying the data over Thane's shoulder. "No species could survive this level of self-destruction." Bell continued scrolling through the files, revealing conflict after conflict. "Sir, this appears to be accurate. They have detailed records of weapons development, tactical innovations, and military strategies that span millennia. They've invented thousands of different ways to kill each other and have been refining these methods constantly." More disturbing images appeared on the screens. Humans had developed weapons capable of destroying entire cities in single blasts, created poisons that could kill millions, and designed delivery systems that could strike targets anywhere on their planet within minutes. "How did they avoid extinction?" Thane asked, genuinely puzzled. "That's what's remarkable, sir. Every time they developed more destructive capabilities, they also developed better defenses. They learned to fight more efficiently, not just more destructively. Look at these tactical manuals." The files showed human military doctrines that made hegemony strategists look like children playing with toys. Concepts like asymmetric warfare, psychological operations, and combined arms tactics that the hegemony had never needed to develop, because their technological superiority had always been sufficient. Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Nina worked in a converted laboratory facility where pieces of captured alien technology covered every available surface. Her team had been reverse engineering hegemony systems for 72 hours straight, and the results exceeded all expectations. "Their energy weapons are actually less efficient than our railguns," she reported to General Wade during their morning briefing. "They've prioritized raw power over precision. Classic mistake of a species that's never faced serious resistance." Wade studied the technical reports while sipping coffee from a cup that bore the logo of his old tank regiment. "What about their defensive systems?" "Over-engineered for show, under-engineered for effectiveness. Their shields can stop massive energy blasts, but they're vulnerable to rapid-fire kinetic projectiles. We can adapt our existing missile systems to exploit these weaknesses within 48 hours. Above them, the massive underground complex bustled with activity as Earth's military-industrial machine shifted into full war production. Factories that had been producing civilian goods were retooled overnight to manufacture weapons, while research facilities shared data at unprecedented speeds. "Sir," Nina continued, "there's something else. Their computer systems use quantum encryption that our A is cracked in 6 hours. If we can get close enough to their ships, we can potentially take control of their entire fleet." Wade smiled grimly. 40 years of preparing for this day, and they're making it easier than we expected. Back on the hegemony flagship, Lieutenant. Bell had uncovered something that made her call for Admiral Thane immediately. Her voice carried a note of panic that made the entire bridge crew look up from their stations. Admiral, I've found references to something called nuclear weapons. Sir, these humans developed the capability to sterilize their entire planet over 60 years ago, and they've been improving these weapons ever since. The tactical display showed Earth's missile silos, submarine-based launch systems, and mobile platforms. Thousands of weapons that could turn continents into radioactive wastelands, all under the control of a species that had been casually fighting wars for fun. How many nuclear devices do they possess? Thane asked, dreading the answer. Conservative estimate places their arsenal at over 15,000 warheads, sir. Many of them are hundreds of times more powerful than the weapons they used to end their Second World War. Rex's scales had turned completely white. Admiral, we're not facing a primitive species. We're facing a civilization that has weaponized their entire planet. The communication system activated with another message from Earth. Admiral Brooks' voice filled the bridge, still carrying that unsettling, calm confidence. Admiral Thane, our intelligence suggests you're taking time to study human capabilities. That's wise. However, you should know that Earth's defensive systems are now fully active. We call it Fortress Earth, and it represents 40 years of preparation. For exactly this scenario, Thane activated his reply channel. You cannot seriously believe your primitive weapons can challenge the might of the hegemony. Admiral, in the past 72 hours, we've reverse-engineered your technology, identified 17 critical weaknesses in your ship designs, and developed countermeasures for your weapon systems. Your ships are impressive, but they're built by a species that's never fought a real war. Ours are designed by a species that has never stopped fighting. The transmission ended, leaving the hegemony bridge in uncomfortable silence. Through the viewport, Earth looked deceptively peaceful, but Thane now understood that the small blue planet was actually a fortress that had been preparing for galactic war, longer than his species had been space-faring. Sir, what are your orders? Rex asked quietly. Thane studied the tactical displays showing his massive fleet arrayed against a single planet. By every measure, the hegemony should achieve easy victory. But the metrics assumed they were fighting a normal species, not one that had turned warfare into an art form. Prepare for full planetary bombardment, he finally ordered. If we cannot conquer them, we'll destroy them completely. What Thane didn't realize was that his decision to escalate would trigger defensive systems that Earth had been building since the first radio telescopes detected alien signals decades ago. The humans hadn't just prepared for invasion, they had prepared for war. The attack came without warning as Admiral Thane's bombardment fleet moved into position above Earth. Massive energy beams lanced down toward the planet's surface, designed to crack continents and boil oceans. Instead, they struck invisible barriers that flared to life around the entire world, deflecting the devastating weapons back into space. Impossible, Rex breathed, watching their most powerful weapons splash harmlessly against Earth's planetary shields. No species has ever developed defensive systems of this magnitude. Thane's 6 eyes widened as his sensors detected energy readings from the planet below that dwarfed his entire fleet's output. The humans hadn't just built weapons. They had turned their entire world into a single massive fortress. Sir, detecting massive energy spikes from multiple points on the planetary surface, Vale reported, her voice climbing toward panic. They're powering weapon systems that our computers can't even classify. From hidden installations across Earth's continents, weapons that had been decades in development began their deadly work. Orbital railguns fired projectiles at significant fractions of light speed, punching through hegemony shields like paper. Beam weapons powered by entire power grids carved through alien hull armor as if it were made of soft metal. Evasive maneuvers, Thane ordered, but his massive ships were designed for intimidation, not agility. They moved like giant beetles trying to dodge lightning bolts. Captain Eva led her boarding team through the corridors of a captured hegemony cruiser, her assault rifle chattering as alien defenders fell back before her advance. Her team moved with the fluid precision of soldiers who had trained for this exact scenario for years. Command, this is Boarding Team Alpha. We've secured the alien ship's computer core. Beginning data extraction now. Engineer Tom worked frantically at his portable terminal, his fingers flying over interfaces as he hacked into alien systems with tools specifically designed to exploit the weaknesses Dr. Nina had discovered. Got it. Full access to their navigation systems, crew locations, and weapons control. Outstanding, Eva replied, planting explosive charges throughout the ship's critical systems. All teams prepare for extraction. This ship is about to become a very expensive lesson in human warfare. The hegemony cruiser exploded in a chain reaction that sent debris cascading through their defensive formations, but the real damage was the data Tom had extracted. Within minutes, Earth's computers were analyzing complete technical specifications for every ship in the alien fleet. Back on Thane's flagship, Lieutenant Bell stared at her monitors in growing horror. Admiral, we're losing ships faster than our sensors can track. The humans are using some kind of coordinated attack pattern that's targeting our vessels individually. The tactical display showed the impossible truth. Human ships that should have been destroyed in the opening bombardment were appearing throughout the hegemony formation, striking with precision that suggested they knew exactly where to hit each alien vessel. How are they penetrating our defensive perimeter? Thane demanded. Sir, they're not penetrating it. They're using our own ships against us. Somehow they've gained control of our computer systems and are turning our weapons on each other. Tom's virus had spread through the hegemony fleet faster than their security systems could adapt. Ships found their weapons firing on friendly vessels while their navigation systems sent them on collision courses with their own allies. Officer Dana monitored alien communications from her station in Earth Defense Command, translating the growing panic in the transmissions. Admiral Brooks, they're reporting massive casualties. Their fleet coordination is breaking down completely. What about their morale? Brooks asked, knowing that psychological warfare was often more effective than conventional weapons. Collapsing, sir? They're intercepting our historical broadcasts about human military campaigns. Apparently, they're particularly disturbed by our accounts of the siege of Stalingrad and the Battle of Thermopylae. Brooks nodded with satisfaction. The plan had worked perfectly. While the aliens studied human military history looking for weaknesses, they had instead discovered that humans fought wars with a combination of technology, tactics, and sheer bloody-minded determination that no other species had ever developed. Sir, Dana continued, we're detecting communication attempts from several alien ships requesting permission to surrender. Denied, Brooks replied coldly. They came here to commit genocide? They don't get to surrender just because it's not going according to plan. In the space around Earth, the battle had become a rout. Human ships darted between alien vessels like wolves among sheep, using tactics that combined modern technology with strategies borrowed from every major military campaign in human history. Fighter squadrons used formations perfected by ancient cavalry charges, while simultaneously deploying weapons that could crack asteroid hulls. Larger ships employed siege tactics that had been refined during medieval castle warfare, adapted for three-dimensional space combat. Admiral Thane watched his mighty armada being systematically destroyed by an enemy that fought like they had been born for war. How many ships have we lost? Over 3,000, sir, and the rate is accelerating. The humans appear to be learning our weaknesses faster than we can adapt to their tactics. Rex studied the tactical displays with the fascination of a professional soldier watching a masterclass in warfare. Admiral, they're not just fighting us. They're teaching us what real war looks like. Explain. Every engagement shows more sophistication than the last. They're using our own responses against us, adapting their tactics in real time based on how we react. It's like fighting an enemy that can read our minds. The communication system activated with another message from Earth, but this time Admiral Brooks' voice carried a note of cold fury that made even Thane's battle-hardened crew flinch. Admiral Thane, you made a critical error when you decided to bombard our planet. Earth has been preparing for a galactic war for 40 years, and you've just given us the excuse we needed to show the galaxy what happens when someone threatens humanity. We still outnumber you 7-1, Thane replied, trying to project confidence he no longer felt. Admiral, you outnumbered us 7-1 when this battle started. Check your current fleet strength. The tactical display updated with current ship counts. Thane stared at the numbers in disbelief. His fleet of 10,000 ships had been reduced to fewer than 4,000 in just 6 hours of combat. This is impossible. No species fights with this level of effectiveness. Admiral Thane, you're fighting the species that survived ice ages, plagues, and 10,000 years of warfare against ourselves. We didn't just develop weapons. We developed the art of war itself. Your species conquered 47 civilizations. Because they were peaceful. Congratulations, you've just found the one species in the galaxy that isn't. The transmission ended as another wave of human ships struck the hegemony formation, their weapons firing with surgical precision while their movements followed patterns that seemed to anticipate every alien countermove. Thane realized with growing horror that the myths about humans hadn't been exaggerations. They had been warnings. The final battle began when Admiral Thane's flagship separated from the remnants of his shattered fleet, its massive engines pushing the wounded vessel toward Earth in what could only be described as a desperate last stand. His crew of 10,000 had been reduced to fewer than 300 survivors, and half of those were wounded. Admiral Brooks watched from his command center as the alien dreadnought approached Earth's orbital defenses. The battle had lasted 18 hours, and the space around their planet was filled with the debris of 7,000 hegemony ships. But this wasn't over yet. "Sir, the alien flagship is attempting to ram our orbital platforms," reported Colonel Beth from her position at the tactical station. "Their shields are down and weapons are offline, but that ship masses 8 million tons. If it hits our stations, ... Launch Dragon Squadron," Brooks ordered, "full intercept pattern. I want that ship stopped before it reaches our defenses." But as the human fighters raced toward Thane's ship, something unexpected happened. The alien admiral opened a direct communication channel, his image appearing on every human command screen throughout the system. "Admiral Brooks, this is Admiral Thane. I request single combat between our vessels to determine the outcome of this battle." Brooks studied the alien commander's image, noting the exhaustion and desperation in those strange compound eyes. "Admiral Thane, your fleet is destroyed. You have nothing left to bargain with." "I have my honor," Thane replied, his voice carrying a dignity that surprised the human officers. "My species made a terrible mistake in attacking yours. Allow me to face you in single combat, ship to ship. If I win, the survivors of my fleet are allowed to return home with word of what we discovered here. If you win, we surrender completely." Rex appeared beside Thane on the screen, his scales bearing the scars of the battle. "Admiral Brooks, we understand now what we're facing. The galaxy needs to know that humans are not a myth, but something far more dangerous. They need to know what happens to those who threaten your species." Brooks considered the offer while studying tactical displays that showed the aliens posed no real threat anymore. The strategic situation was already decided, but there was something appealing about ending this conflict with a final demonstration of human capabilities. "Very well, Admiral Thane. Single combat it is." The two flagships met in the space between Earth and Luna, their weapons powering up for what would be the final engagement of the Sol System battle. Thane's massive dreadnought was twice the size of Brooks' cruiser, but battle damage had left huge gaps in its armor and half its weapon systems were offline. "Admiral," Rex said quietly as they approached the human ship, "there's something you should know. I've been analyzing their tactical patterns throughout this battle. They haven't been fighting to win quickly. They've been fighting to teach us something." "Teaching us what?" "That war isn't about having the biggest ships or the most advanced weapons. It's about understanding your enemy better than they understand themselves." The engagement began with the exchange of energy weapons that lit up space between the two vessels. Thane's ship fired massive plasma bolts that would have vaporized any normal opponent, while Brooks responded with precisely targeted beams that carved through alien armor like surgical instruments. Their accuracy is impossible, Vale reported from her damaged console. Every shot is hitting exactly where it will cause maximum system damage without destroying us outright. Thane realized the human admiral was demonstrating something important. Brooks could have destroyed the Hegemony flagship in the opening salvo, but instead he was systematically dismantling it piece by piece, showing exactly how outclassed alien technology really was. "Admiral Brooks?" Thane transmitted. "Why are you prolonging this engagement? You could end it at any time." "Admiral Thane, I want you to understand something before this battle ends. When your species returns to the galaxy, they need to carry an accurate message about what they encountered here." Brooks' ship accelerated directly toward the alien dreadnought, its weapons firing continuously while maneuvering with agility that seemed impossible for a vessel of its size. "You came here thinking humans were primitive. You're about to become legend." The final moments of the battle demonstrated everything that made humans different from every other species in the galaxy. Brooks' ship moved like it was alive, anticipating every alien maneuver while its weapons struck with surgical precision. It wasn't just superior technology or better tactics. It was warfare elevated to an art form. When Thane's ship finally lost power and drifted helpless in space, he found himself staring at a species that had just redefined what it meant to be a warrior civilization. "Admiral Thane, this is Admiral Brooks. Do you surrender?" "I surrender," Thane replied, his voice carrying a mixture of defeat and awe. "Admiral, what manner of creatures are humans? How do you fight with such precision and coordination?" "Admiral, we're the species that survived 10,000 years of war against ourselves. We turned our entire planet into a weapon just to be ready for this day. Every human child learns military history before they learn to read. Every human adult understands that peace is something you prepare for by being ready for war." The remnants of the Hegemony fleet began their long journey home, carrying fewer than 1,000 survivors from the original armada of hundreds of thousands. Thane sat in his damaged command center, composing the report that would change galactic civilization forever. Personal log, Admiral Thane, final entry. The species designation human is not mythological. They represent the most dangerous military force encountered in galactic history. Recommend immediate classification as apex predator species. Under no circumstances should any fleet approach the Sol system. They do not conquer, they do not negotiate, they simply win. 6 months later, Thane stood before the Hegemony High Command trying to convince his superiors that the greatest military force in galactic history had just suffered complete defeat at the hands of a single planet. "Impossible," declared Supreme Commander Kor, dismissing Thane's report with a gesture. "No single world could destroy 10,000 ships. You're describing fantasy, not military engagement." "Sir, I have sensor logs, survivor testimony, and captured human technology. Everything I've reported is documented fact. Admiral Thane, you've suffered traumatic stress from your defeat. These humans you describe are clearly mythological. Perhaps you should consider retirement." But even as the Hegemony High Command dismissed his warnings, other reports were beginning to reach their intelligence networks. Merchant vessels reported encounters with human exploration ships in sectors that had never been visited by Sol system craft. Trade routes were being monitored by vessels that appeared and disappeared without warning. Colonel Beth led the first human expedition beyond the Sol system, her stealth ship penetrating deep into former Hegemony territory. Her mission was simple: let the galaxy know that Earth remembered both its friends and its enemies. "Command, this is Deep 6. We've established monitoring stations in 12 systems. Any hostile fleet movements toward Earth will be detected weeks before they arrive." "Copy that, Deep 6. How are the locals responding to human presence?" "Mixed reactions, Command. Some species are terrified. Others are asking for protection from Hegemony expansion." Apparently, word is spreading that there's finally someone in the galaxy who can stand up to the major powers. The myth of humanity had become something new. Where once there had been legends of mysterious warriors from the void, now there were confirmed reports of a species that had destroyed the most powerful fleet in galactic history without losing a single major ship. Trade agreements began arriving at Earth from species that had never made contact before, offering everything from rare minerals to advanced scientific knowledge in exchange for human protection. The galaxy had learned that there was finally someone who could stand against the hegemony's endless expansion. Admiral Brooks reviewed the diplomatic requests flooding into Earth Defense Command, while studying tactical reports from human scout ships now operating throughout the Outer Rim territories. The victory over Thane's fleet had accomplished more than just defending Earth. It had fundamentally shifted the balance of power in the galaxy. "Sir, we're receiving surrender offers from 17 hegemony colonies," reported his communications officer. "They're requesting human oversight rather than continued hegemony rule. What's our response?" "Standard protocol, sir. We're not conquerors. We're defenders. Any species that wants freedom from oppression can have it, but they'll need to govern themselves." This was the difference that made humans unique in galactic politics. Every other major species conquered to expand their territory or increase their resources. Humans fought to end fights, not to start empires. 6 months after the battle, former Admiral Thane sat in a small dwelling on a remote hegemony world, officially retired but unofficially exiled for his impossible reports about human capabilities. His warnings had been dismissed, his evidence ignored, and his career destroyed. But late at night, when he received encrypted messages from active duty officers reporting more human ships appearing in contested systems, he knew his exile wouldn't last forever. The galaxy was changing, and sooner or later the hegemony would have to acknowledge what they had awakened. Former Admiral Thane came a transmission on a frequency that shouldn't have existed. "This is Colonel Beth of Earth Defense Forces. We understand you've been trying to warn your people about human capabilities." Thane activated his personal communicator, surprised that the humans had found him on this remote world. "Colonel Beth, my superiors believe humans are still mythological. They refuse to accept the reality of what happened at Sol." "That's unfortunate, Admiral, because human exploration fleets are now operating in 47 systems, and we've made contact with over 200 species that were previously under hegemony control. The galaxy is going to change whether your leaders accept it or not. What do you want from me?" "Nothing, Admiral. We wanted you to know that when the hegemony finally realizes what they're dealing with, Earth remembers who tried to warn them. That might be important someday." The transmission ended, leaving Thane staring at his communicator and wondering how a species could fight with such devastating effectiveness, while still showing honor to defeated enemies. Meanwhile, in the depths of space, human ships continued their quiet exploration of the galaxy, carrying a simple message to every species they encountered. Earth was no longer isolated, no longer vulnerable, and no longer willing to let aggressive civilizations threaten peaceful worlds. The humans had evolved beyond myth into something the galaxy had never seen before, a species that was prepared for war but dedicated to peace, powerful enough to destroy empires but disciplined enough to build alliances instead. Admiral Brooks stood on the observation deck of humanity's newest starship, watching Earth's blue surface rotate slowly beneath them while construction crews worked on the orbital shipyards that would build the next generation of human vessels. "Sir," his aide approached with the latest intelligence reports, "our scout ships are reporting that 7 major galactic powers have issued official statements, recognizing human sovereignty over the Sol system. Apparently they're hoping to avoid the same fate as the hegemony fleet." Brooks nodded, unsurprised by the development. "Any word from the hegemony leadership?" "Still denying that humans exist, sir. But their military commanders are quietly avoiding any systems where our ships have been spotted." The Admiral smiled as he watched another human exploration vessel launch toward the stars, carrying diplomats, scientists, and just enough firepower to ensure that peaceful intentions were taken seriously. The myth of humanity had become reality, and the galaxy would never be the same. Where once there had been legends of mysterious warriors from the void, now there was the confirmed presence of a species that had mastered the art of war so completely that they could choose when not to use it. And perhaps most importantly, they had proven that the greatest victory wasn't conquering your enemies, but convincing them that conquest was no longer an option.